Hello and welcome to the show. This week's FailRace versus the community. We are racing B-Class hot hatches. These are the cars that the Forza the game puts into the hot hatch division. Our first race would go to the Catalonia National Circuit. A firm favourite of the versus the community races. Turn 1 here though can be a little bit chaotic as it's an incredibly tight hairpin. It wasn't too bad, we certainly had a lot worse times through turn 1. I thought I was just going around the outside of the Alpha, didn't realise there was a Lancia on the inside there, so that was 3 wide through a corner. It's not normally you get 3 cars wide through that particular turn, but we all made it out of the other side relatively intact as we go through this far chicane. Kind of just the whole pack on all bunches up. I tried to get alongside a Clio, but a little bit too much oversteer in the Lancia meant I had to back out of that one. The Alpha was all over the back of me, trying to find a way past. Fiat was slow off the corner, so I made the most of that with the 4-wheel drive acceleration, getting my car up alongside and past. And then the Clio got a lot of understeer, running a little bit wide. Again, when you see a gap like that, you've got to go for it. In a very similar story with the Escort, just left the door open for me. I had the acceleration, just dived my car up the inside, and yeah, got the move done. I had a really good first lap. Made a long way through the field. Unfortunately, that's about as good as things we're going to get with the Lancia. Yeah, this one wasn't my greatest of races. I made a couple of mistakes and this got tangled up in other people's accidents. So yeah, I would that was the best that the Lancia got in this one. Of course, in the opening lap, or opening couple of laps I should say, while all of the cars are relatively close together, there is plenty of shuffling through the field. This Clio trying to get past an Escort, but the Ford isn't giving up. Goes around the outside at the top of the hill, and there's still side by side. A Civic's trying to make it 3 wide at one point. That's not, I mean, the corner before that you don't really want to go 3 wide, certainly not at the top of the hill there. You don't want to go 3 wide. The Civic wisely backed out. Unfortunately, I think the Escort kind of got forced a little bit of a tight line. Bumped the Civic. Civic had no problem with that, but the Escort would end up going round. The Clio would make a break from this group. The Clio seemed to have really good grip, but was lacking somewhat in straight line speed, so when it closed up to the back of the Alpha through this section, the second the Alpha got anywhere near a straight, it would bugger off. And yeah, just that bit of straight line speed was certainly useful around this circuit. The Alpha would then proceed to catch up to the back of what was 3rd place in a Clio. Catalonia can at times be a tad difficult to overtake. There are a couple of really good spaces. The rest of them, though, are often just sort of half chances. The Alpha goes to the inside of a final corner. Not normally a place that you would get an overtake, it's just a flat-out corner. However, the Clio got a little bit wrong on the exit of the chicane, was out a little bit wide. That allowed the Alpha to get back past. Your good overtaking spot, definitely the best overtaking spot of this circuit, is down into turn 1, and the Clio, with some serious straight line speed, got his car up the inside. You got to make sure that you get the thing stopped though into this first hairpin, and the Clio was back past. If you can hold it around the outside, you would be on the inside for the next corner. However, the Alpha can't quite do that. The Clio pushing hard, trying to keep the position, runs a little bit wide, has a wheel on the sand. I mean, this is a potential overtaking point, but it is a tough one going around the outside at the top of the hill. But the Alpha made the move stick, and even with their fighting, they were catching the Renault 5 up ahead of them. That's a pretty spectacular manoeuvre from the Alpha. The Renault would have a little bit of an off and drop back. The Civic was catching this group really rather quickly. The Renault 5 getting a big 2-wheel moment. That's not what you want to be having coming out of the chicane. The problem is there was nowhere quite for the Clio to go. He had to sort of lift back off a little bit, which allowed the Civic to have the best run out of all of them onto the start-finish straight. We saw the straight line speed of the Clio though. He goes breezing past the Renault 5. The Civic comes past as well. However, the Renault 5 goes for a big dive, under brakes, gets it up the inside of the Clio, a little bit of a bump, but the Clio keeps it around the outside. The Civic's looking all over the curb, trying to find somewhere that he can get back past. But you can see the Civic has so much more grip than the Renault, just runs out of road a little bit on the outside there. The Civic can carry so much more corner speed, but was having a tough time finding a way past. The thing with the Renault 5s is being rear-wheel drive, and they can get some pretty sizable tyres on the back of them. You get really good launch out of the corners, and they're often very light. So it could get out of the corners really quite quickly, and was making itself a nuisance for the Civic. Again, we'll see the Civic can get a lot more corner speed around there, but then goes the Renault's drive out of the turn. You got to bear in mind, and this is, you can see that the 2 cars behind as well. In fact, the Clio, I think, must have made a mistake at some point as he was getting drawn back into this fight. The Civic tried to get to the inside, couldn't quite get the car far enough alongside. Yeah, now the Renault's right back on the boot of the Clio. We've got the Fiesta and the Williams Clio. We're now catching this group of cars. In the end, the Renault was trying valiantly. Got a little bit too much of a slide coming out of the chicane. The Civic saw a half chance, tried to get his nose up the inside. A little bit of contact, lent on each other a bit, but they got around the final corner okay. But it was the straight line speed of the Civic that was enough to propel it past the little Renault. While the traction out of the corners was good for the Renault 5, it just didn't quite have the same top end as the Civic, and he could blast past the Renault 5 and get the position. But yeah, this midfield group had a really close battle for the majority of the race. At the front, and it was an Escort Cosworth that would go on to take victory. This car got to the front on the first couple of laps and then vanished while the rest of the field squabbled. I think the Escort might have got fastest lap. There were a few cars that were setting similar lap times. The problem is the Ford had made such a huge gap at the start while everybody else had to work their way through the field that, yeah, they were never going to be able to catch him. Certainly if you can make that gap at the start, it is very, very useful indeed. Race number 2, and we would go to Laguna Seca, and you can see the four-wheel drive cars when they go off the line. My Lancia made up huge gains if you get it off the line correctly. Yeah, the four-wheel drive cars to be fair, it's a tad scary when you're launching. You've got so much more speed than anybody else around you. Fortunately, things have gone a little bit wrong at turn 1. Again, Laguna Seca, this can often be a little bit of a problematic turn 1, and this turned out to be a lot more chaos than we had at Catalonia. A decent number of cars at the front made it through unscathed. This Volkswagen that we're following got passed by an Escort. The Escort was then having a look at a Civic, really slowed himself down through the next corner. Volkswagen tried to carry the momentum. I think there was a little bit of a bump between the pair of them. The Volkswagen tried to get that better line down the back straight here. Got his car to the inside. You can hold it around the outside if you've got enough grip in your vehicle and got enough speed. However, the Escort couldn't quite manage that one. For me, I was struggling again a little bit with my Lancia here. My main problem was the brakes weren't particularly good on it, and while yes, the traction and the acceleration, straight line speed was fantastic, you can see the Civic here was really having a solid look at going around the outside, but he doesn't have that acceleration. I could get my car just far enough ahead that by the time we came to the next braking point, it was really awkward for the Civic behind me to have a dive. But yeah, my other big issues were I had a little bit of oversteer. Now, on most of these corners, it wasn't too bad, provided I'd got the braking sorted out. However, the corner after the corkscrew, I was having huge issues with. I don't know why that corner particularly, but that corner there was causing massive problems for my Lancia. So while I was fending off the Civic around here, again up towards the corkscrew, the Civic can make up a lot of time under brakes. I can make up the time then accelerating away from the corner. This is where I knew I was weak. Around this turn, as I was fighting the oversteer in the Lancia. The Civic is very close through here. He thinks about having a look, but again, once I've got the car sorted out, I can just use that acceleration. Again, out of the next turn, I can just use the acceleration and go back to the inside to cover that and fend off the Civic. But unfortunately, one of the leaders would get turned around with a bit of a laggy incident up there. Yeah, I was being a pain to overtake at this stage of the race. One of the cars that had, I think he got slightly tangled up, the Golf or Rabbit, depending on where you're from here, hadn't actually taken damage, but he got tangled up in that first lap incident, so was trying to make his way through the field. He caught up to the back of the Renault 5 and the Escort as they were having a dice. The Volkswagen gets stuck on the outside, and it's not really somewhere that you're going to... You can do it, but he didn't particularly fancy that one. You're much better off, as he did, cut back to the inside, get a better run on the exit, and then you can just out-drag the car up towards the corkscrew, and that is very helpful when the car ahead of you out-brakes himself, runs wide, and is very slow off the turn. That gives the Volkswagen an opportunity through the next corner, get his car to the inside, and make up the position. The Escort not quite done yet. The Volkswagen runs a little bit wide, just sort of misses the apex on the next turn, so the Escort's having a look just in case there is a possibility. However, the Volkswagen seemed pretty good under brakes. The Ford didn't really have much of a chance to do anything at that point, and then the Volkswagen seems to have pretty good acceleration. I'm guessing pretty damn light in that particular vehicle. Now, one of the fun of having hot hatches is there can be plenty of racing throughout the field. This was was further down. I think this was the lower parts of the top 10. A Honda Civic. These things were pretty damn fast around here, gotta say. Honda Civic went for a dive up the inside of a Golf, just outbraked himself a little bit. The Golf saw an opportunity to try and get the cutback, and he gets the cutback successful. Problem is, he just does not have the speed of the Civic. Got far more acceleration coming up that hill, and the Volkswagen can't really do too much about the Civic. And this was the fight over, I think, about 14th, 15th place between all of these cars. The Fiesta runs a little bit wide and drops back behind this group. I think some of these cars may potentially have suffered from varying levels of damage. The Civic leading this group around, with the Veloster tried to fight a way past. The Fiesta, though, the quickest of the lot of them in the straight line as they head up towards turn 1. The Civic's got the Hyundai pretty much beat for a straight line speed. The Ford is having a look at the inside. Now, somebody had knocked down some braking boards towards the corner. The Civic wasn't quite sure when to brake, braked far too early, and Hyundai and Ford both sweep past him, one on the inside, one on the outside. Hyundai's all the way around the outside of turn 1, which is a pretty tough manoeuvre to do. That puts you on the inside for the next turn. The Fiesta tries to hold it, gets a little bit of a twitch through the corner. He ends up on the gravel. Yeah, it's a pretty damn impressive overtake to hold it around the outside of turn 1 while sort of essentially being 3 wide at one point. That's pretty good going from these guys, and that was over, as I said, 15th place. Yeah, everybody was racing really rather hard with these cars. At the front, and it was a Clio that was leading the way with a Civic for close company. The Clio got to the lead. There was a little bit of a gap briefly. The Civic then quickly closed it in, and it could not find a way past. The Civic was having a look, trying to get past, and you could see the Civic was much better through the corners. Problem was, the Clio just had that little bit more straight line speed and was good enough under brakes, could just get far enough away from the Civic that he could defend through all of these corners. And the Honda wasn't quite quick enough, didn't have quite that much more speed than the Clio to simply drive around the outside of him. So yeah, life was very difficult for the Civic to try and find a way past. In Laguna, there are a few decent overtakes, but if the Clio could get out of the corners quick enough, could get far enough ahead down the short straight, he could make it very, very difficult. The Civic getting a little bit impatient there, a little bit of a hurry-up bump for the Clio. But yeah, he was having a really, really tough time finding a way past, as the Clio just pretty much defended all of the corners. However, as they came up towards the final lap, the Civic saw his chance. They run into the final corner. The Clio had to go defensive, was a little bit slow off the turn, and for the first time in the race, the Civic had managed to get alongside him. Now, he wasn't going to outdrag the Clio down into turn 1, but he was further alongside than he had been in previous attempts. He was closer, so having a dive into the first corner was quite possible. He has a go, doesn't really get it that far alongside. However, the Clio just outbrakes himself a little bit. He still gets the car stopped and so on, but it's just enough. He leaves a Civic-sized gap on the inside, and the Honda pounces at the opportunity to take the lead. The Clio has a little bit of a look through the next corner. But yeah, all of that defending is just one Civic-sized gap, and the Honda finds a way past. It wasn't quite completely done as they came up towards the final corner. The Civic did go quite defensive. Clio had a huge dive, almost got it worked, but the Honda was just too far ahead. A little bit of a bump in the end, but the Civic was to go and take victory from the Clio in second. It was another Civic that was catching this group really quite quickly by the end once they started fighting like that, while my Lancia would finish in fourth. Our final race, we would go to the Sebring Club Circuit in the pouring rain. And again, you see the four-wheel drive cars absolutely fly off the line with this one. Yeah, in the wet, the four-wheel drive certainly will get you off the line very, very, very quickly. A little bit of a concertina effect into turn 1, a fair bit of bumping through that. I don't think we had any massive accidents, just kind of little bumps here and there throughout the field. Then there is the Puddle of Doom. This was always likely to be interesting with a field of cars going through here for the first time. Most part on this opening lap, everybody got through without any major issues, which was quite surprising. One of the Alpha up there may have outbraked himself, probably got himself caught on the grass or in a puddle, to end up out on that piece of grass. Yeah, the Puddle of Doom was always going to be a big challenge around here. It was always likely to cause all sorts of carnage as an Escort tried to... I mean, most of the cars were taking it flat out. The Escort got away despite going out quite wide. This Alpha here took a really, really good line across there, got really good speed out of it. Got a little bit boxed in by the Fords ahead. The Clio kept alongside around the outside, but couldn't quite make it stick. Then an Escort was a little bit slow. Not sure if we got a big slide across the puddle, quite possibly. The Alpha having a look at the outside of another Ford through here, can't quite fit his car through that particular space. Yeah, the rain certainly makes things a challenge at this circuit. It is not easy driving these cars around here. Mistakes incredibly easy to make around this circuit. As I found out, I got spun across the Puddle of Doom. My Lancia, well, I built the Lancia in the wet after I'd made the mistake of having the Alpha TZ2. Fantastic in the dry, awful in the wet. I built the Lancia for the wet to be quick in these conditions and hoped it would be good in the dry regardless. Didn't quite work out like that, but it was very, very fast in the wet. And after my little moment across the Puddle of Doom, I had a lot of work to do to catch up to the leader. So I instantly pounced on repassing the Escort. My next car up in line was second place in the Golf, and one of the big strong points of this Lancia had a lot of straight line speed. Very, very quick car in a straight line compared to the vehicles around. You can see the size of the gap I've got on the Escort already. As we come down towards turn 1, I have a go up the inside. The brakes on the Lancia aren't fantastic, neither were they on the Golf though, and I managed to get my car up the inside and back past, and despite the spin across the Puddle of Doom and then a big sideways moment after clipping the curb on the inside there, I'd recovered myself to second place. So yeah, that was a pretty busy half a lap for me. I then get a big twitch. The Golf much cleaner across the Puddle of Doom. However, I was far enough ahead. I could get myself to the inside, block the inside, and then use that four-wheel drive traction, use that acceleration I had in the Delta to keep my car ahead. The Civic enjoyed a very brief stint in second place, I think it was, before he fell off the road and dropped back as well. Now he was trying to work his way through the order. Ignore the lagged out Golf in the middle of the road, don't worry about that one. He was fighting with another Escort and a Golf down towards turn 1. Try and make it 3 wide into turn 1, probably not too good an idea. The Escort managed to try and keep it around the outside. Again, that four-wheel drive traction could come in very, very handy. Couldn't quite make it stick, and the Civic had a really good run down this back straight. Now we're going to go too wide across the Puddle of Doom. It's not a good place to be going too wide. Half expected there to be a very, very big crash there. They got away with it. The Escort got things wrong under brakes. I think probably got into puddles or maybe had a wheel on the grass out there. Ended up going into the corner almost sideways, looking at the door of the Civic. Again, amazingly they got away with that one. It's not an ideal angle to be coming at a corner. And the Golf, well, he did a very, very similar thing. I think it was a wheel on the grass under braking, and then you're not going to stop the car. And the Civic found himself up into 4th place. So yeah, a couple of places in that one, making good use of overtakes where you could get them. Really got to be very opportunistic with racing in the rain. The Alpha was continuing to race with this little group. This was just behind that Civic battle. These three were close together. The Golf got a bit of understeer coming out of the first corner. That put him off the road, allowing both the Alpha and the Hyundai through to come across the Puddle of Doom. We often were seeing that it was the lead car that had the problem. The car behind tended to get a better run. Again, it was a similar story here with the Alpha getting thrown about a little bit more. The Veloster was trying. He got a really good run across the Puddle of Doom, but couldn't quite make the most of it through the next couple of corners, and the Alfa Romeo would keep the position. Further back, I think this was around for 12th place. Again, we were seeing plenty of close battling throughout the field. Battle between the two Fords. The Escort trying to get down the inside of a Fiesta towards turn 1. Turn 1, of course, one of the good overtaking spots, one of the best overtaking spots certainly on the track. The Escort though goes a little bit too deep under brakes, but uses that four-wheel drive traction over the corner to keep himself alongside the Fiesta. And again, we're heading towards the Puddle of Doom too wide. The Fiesta lets out of it a little bit. The Escort gets a really big slide across the puddle. He's off exploring the outer limits of the track. Does a good job of getting back under control before this next corner. If you do end up going out that way, the Fiesta gets his place back, but the Escort doesn't lose too much time in recovering it. Yeah, if you end up out too far over there, you can get in a lot of trouble on the dirt. And again, we see the lead car is the car having the issues. across the Puddle of Doom. This time it's the Volkswagen as he fights with the Veloster. The Veloster's around the outside. I think the Volkswagen may have been ever so slightly on the puddles under braking. You saw the car kind of twitching and going sideways. Volkswagen tries to keep it alongside the Hyundai. It would have given him the inside line for this next corner. He thinks about having a dive, doesn't quite get it right, gives the Hyundai a little bit of a bump through that turn. No real harm done with that one though, and yeah, the Veloster can keep the position in the Volkswagen very quickly, coming under threat from the Alfa Romeo. At the front though, well, I would inherit the lead after the Clio that was leading made a mistake and dropped back through the field. I would inherit the lead. The Escort Cosworth in second kept me honest for a little while, didn't really have any answer to the Lancia's straight line speed, and when he made a mistake, outbraked himself at turn 1, gave me a fairly comfortable margin back to second place. You can just about see him there coming around that kink on the straight. The Lancia, fantastic, really, really good wet weather car. I've managed to build, for 2 of these events, managed to build 2 very specialist cars. The Alfa Romeo in the C-Class 1, really, really good at the dry. The Lancia, really, really good at the wet. Not quite got an all-round car yet. The Lancia, it was a fantastic vehicle for dealing with the wet weather at Sebring. Lots of straight-line speed, but for handling the dry tracks, it just didn't quite have the grip required that quite a lot of the other cars did. But still, hot hatch racing, always good fun. Lots and lots of close racing in this one. Plenty of overtakes. We had a few first corner shunts, shall we say, but plenty of close racing, and that's always what you want from these. Anyway, that is it for this week's FailRace versus the community. The next one shall be held on Thursday, the 8th of October. We are going to be running C-Class Fords. So any Ford to be built into C-Class. If you want to sign up and take part in that event, then you can via our forums. There'll be a link in the description. Find the FailRace versus the community section, and you can sign up in there. But that is it from me. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.